And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, fuck him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course 5:05 coast to coast, bright and early. So, obviously, the cat's out of the bag. I just, my friends and listeners here, I want to say I'm overwhelmed, and I can't believe it. I'm touched at this point. I don't want to spend too much time because I don't want to break down here. But so my son has been battling cancer for a year right now. He has a brain tumor, and it's been the most challenging year of my life. I spent tour of duty in Iraq, almost 20 years doing police work, and this has been the most challenging year. And I can't tell you enough how grateful I am for all the people that have stepped up and dove into their pockets, and it's beyond my expectations. Some of the donations have been astronomical. I am so thankful. I can't believe it. Derek, thanks you. It's been a hell of a year. My wife and I, we tried to keep this private for a long time to protect Derek. And, unfortunately, the more you talk about it, the more real that it gets. So this has been beyond my expectations. And for those people that, if you can't donate, you have conflict of your own going in your life right now, if you could just say a prayer, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody coming together. It's been truly amazing. I just wanted to go a little bit into my journey before we segue into today's topic, and just tell you that my wife and I and our children in retirement, we started RVing throughout the country, and we were having an amazing time. And then we decided to spend some time in Asia. It really checked all the boxes. My wife's really into Buddhism. I got into it myself. I was competing out there doing jiu-jitsu, doing MMA. It's okay if you're old out there. There's a circuit for everything. And Derek was doing jiu-jitsu out there also. So my message is this: don't take anything for granted. Pay attention to your own health. Pay attention to your kids. Sometimes we take things for granted, and like normal people, you tell your kids, suck it up, you'll be okay. So we were in Bali, living in Bali, and in Indonesia, and Derek started to have headaches for about a week. And here's a kid who never complained. And we said, something's wrong. And normally you tell your kids, suck it up. But something just didn't sit right. And we just had a feeling. We took him to a clinic, and they did some blood work, and they said he seems okay. Sent us home, and then we got a response. Just to show you how amazing life is. And the blood came back that he had a bacterial infection, completely unrelated. But my wife and I said, something's wrong. Let's go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and at the hospital, they did a scan. They found it. And within a couple of hours, we donated all our clothes, got rid of all our scooters, gave back a villa that we paid for almost a year in advance. Lost a lot of money, but it didn't matter. We got on a plane, and strategically we picked out our stops based on hospitals along the way. One in Taiwan, Los Angeles, and our ultimate goal was to get to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And we couldn't make it. He was in too much pain and uncomfortable. So we got off the plane. We're right to the emergency room in LA. And that's been our journey for a year. And I want to thank Paul Manicombe and his wife for starting and creating this GoFundMe and really getting behind me to help me. Thank you so much to the Manicombe family. If you could, Jack, pull up Just Right PD, his Twitter page. I just want to give a shout out to Paul Manicombe and say thank you for what him and his wife have done for me by putting this together. And thank you so much, everyone that has been donating. I really appreciate it. And, it's been truly beyond my expectations. So, and John and everybody here for helping out. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. And, John, I know this is near and dear to you also. John lost his mother to cancer. So it's been a hell of a battle, but we're not giving up. We're strong people. We're going to keep fighting. Derek's really into Minecraft, so he's wearing a Minecraft shirt. Derek was doing jiu-jitsu himself. It's been really symptomatic. He's been having trouble walking. Can't use his right arm. He's been sleeping most of the day, but he never complains. So if he doesn't complain, I won't complain. So I want to thank everyone. This podcast has been really therapy. It helps. Really gives a lot of purpose. Doing jiu-jitsu, keeping busy all day. And you know what? Stay strong. Always have hope. I thank everybody. John, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, dude, it's I mean, listen, I'm just I'm grateful for everybody on here. I'm grateful for all the support that you've been receiving. I'm grateful for Paul and his wife. I think they did a great job. And it's terrible, dude. It's horrible to see a son go through it, and then it's equally horrible to think how this is the state of healthcare in this country, and it's horrible, dude. Thank everybody, appreciate it.
I'm amazed how people come together. It's unfortunate we come together in times of peril, but I will tell you this: I've learned that there's still so many good people out there. Thank God, and I do believe that everything in life happens happens for a reason. I think I got retired early to be in this position that I am right now because I said to myself, if you have a full-time job, I don't know how you do this, because this is a full-time job. Going to doctors, doing clinical trials. My wife and I do research every day. We're on the phone with, one day we're on the phone with Children's Hospital in Minnesota, St. Jude's in Memphis, Baylor in Texas, Hospital in Seattle, Children's Hospital in San Francisco. So I can tell you all the hospitals out there, virtual meetings with different doctors, finding different clinical trials, and then getting turned down for different clinical trials because the tumor has grown and progressed, or the age. So I will say this, it's unfortunate, but we have to stand up and fight against cancer. And what I do, and I want to thank the doctors at Los Angeles Children's Hospital. They've been amazing. But what I see in this country is we treat the symptoms. We don't treat the cure. They have no idea how this happens. And only 400 kids get this a year. It's a grade 4 DMG glioma. Want to look it up what it is. So please be mindful. We have to really work to make healthcare better in this country. And even with insurance, that's a major financial battle. I never wanted to ask for money, but unfortunately we hit a wall, and whatever you got to do for your family, you do it. So thank you so much to everyone. We'll get into the topic. God bless you people. God bless there's amazing people out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys could just do us a favor, go over to Paul Manicone's post on X. It's at Just Right PD. If you guys could just say a prayer, share, if you could donate, whatever you could do, much appreciated. Let's move forward. Eric, you're a strong dude, bro. I've been in awe of you this whole year. So, all right. So for those of you looking to get promoted in the NYPD, a good friend of ours, George Misford, part owner of the Key. I think the Key's a vital program in the step to promotion in the NYPD. It's something that we've all used. Myself has used. Eric's used. They're offering a free class for those of you that want to study to get to go into the promotion ranks, and I think you guys should take advantage of it. It's not often you're going to get anything for free in life. So obviously, they're not asking for money of you. They're asking for your time. They're asking for your dedication. And if you want to get promoted, like I've said before, what I did is I signed up for the Key. I signed up for Elite Strategic. I signed up for Rising Star. I took all the classes. I tried to attend every class I could. I tried to do virtually what I could. And then, like I said, I read that patrol guide numerous times, and I would break each section down on cue cards, and I would do it. Patrol guide 202, line 20203, line 1. The patrol supervisor is responsible for blank. And on the other side, I would put it, and I would literally I did that for the whole patrol guide. I must have wrote, I don't even know how many cue cards in my life and in my career in the NYPD. But those I used. One, you write it down, and it reinforces what you heard in class. It reinforces the test they give you. And then it's a good way while you're on patrol and to just mess around with each other. Even guys that aren't studying are going to mess around with you to try to remember what that is. So, yeah, shout out to George Misford and the Key.
Yeah, really, shout out to George Misford. Not only is he behind the Key, he's now in retirement. He's running a gym. I think it's out in Long Island. He looks phenomenal. He's in phenomenal shape. Really an inspiration. And, anyone getting older out there and you're a man or woman, you're asking yourself, can you stay in shape? Go check out George Misford. He looks phenomenal. He's got a lot of shirtless pictures, and you know what? Rightfully so. He deserves it. Listen, right? Rightfully so. It looks like Looks like a Greek god right now. God bless him. We should all look like that. But you know what? He puts the work in. He puts the effort. And if you need help, I'm sure I'll help you. Really outstanding. He was super motivating years ago when he had the key classes. I went to quite a few of his classes when I was studying for sergeant. And he was super motivating. I remember back then he was like, you have to take the test. So, George Bishop, thank you so much. I tell you, it is fun. You're right. I remember when I was actually studying for captain. I didn't get promoted, but I was in the car with the guys, and I was barely.
You passed the test. You passed the test out.
Well, I was barely studying, but some of my guys they were studying for sergeant at the time. And like it was like the timing, so they would go and ask me questions, and I was, I know this one, that one, and they would laugh. And we would laugh our asses off. So yeah, that was great. George Bishop, good stuff. The key, that's free, and even if you're not studying, why not know more about your job? But more about your job. It's just knowledge. Knowledge is power. Put that in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Who was your favorite key instructor? George, don't be mad, but I liked you. I thought you were real good, but my favorite was Jimmy Shea. I remembered everything Jimmy Shea said. The worst key instructor, a guy not too well liked in the NYPD. A lot of people hate him, but worst key instructor ever. And Joe, I'm sorry, Joe Veneziano, when he did. I mean, people were literally getting up and walking out. They're like, about this. But I think best key instructor for me was Jimmy Shea.
Oh, I love Jimmy. He's a former Marine. I gotta say, Semper Fi, of course. But George was super motivating. He just had, he did have. I'm not gonna say it because it is George, but I have to say he did have a captivating way of hitting. Like, all right, I got to do it. I had to laugh though for some reason though with the fast track guys. Minus George, of course, but with the fast track guys. I remember all the guys were like jacked up. Like, you gotta be jacked to take this class. So, but yeah, it was good times. Good, of course, except for Philip Banks. He wasn't jacked up. He was associated with fast track. So yeah, that's enough for that. Listen, study. I always say it doesn't matter if you're getting promoted. Of course, you got to dive into it, but you should read this stuff anyway. You got to know your job. And unfortunately, most people, if they're not getting promoted or they're seeking out promotion, they don't read it. I think that's an epic fail. Just read the book. Read Supreme Court cases. The more knowledge you have, the more powerful you are, and the more that you can stand up for your own rights.
Absolutely. You got to get promoted. And listen, even if you don't want to get promoted, like even if you're a second grader or a first grader, I think I would just be taking the test anyway. It was always just like a little goal. I just wanted to see how I would do. You don't have to take the rank. You never have to take it. But that option's there should, things go sideways and whatever you're doing. And shout out to Jessica Tisch. Promotions came down last night. I think when I looked at the promotions, a lot of people well deserving, especially shout out to now going to be Detective Second Grade Terry Avent, who was recently shot in the line of duty while responding to a barricaded situation. Way long overdue. So you saw the promotions. I thought that they were great, man. I was like, wow. I was like, this is her first actual promotion that appears to be merit based.
I spoke to Terry and he said, thanks for the advertisement. I said, you don't have to thank us for advertisement. You deserved it. You got promoted. I know Terry since we were rookies. We worked together. I got a great story about Terry. I'll never forget. So Terry was assigned to Staten Island Housing at the time. They had their own unit. And it was on Bay Street. Anybody familiar with Bay Street in Staten Island? So I had responded to, it was early rookie days. I was on patrol, responded to a burglary on Bay Street. And I'm looking for my perpetrator. And I'm looking around. And sure enough, I see Terry, and he was with his partner at the time. I forgot who it was. And they had somebody stopped. And I looked at the guy's getting a ticket for drinking a beer. I go, Terry, that's my perp. So I grabbed the guy. He goes, hold on, I got to finish writing him a ticket. But I'll never forget. Terry, awesome guy. He's a giant, super gentleman. You talk about masculinity. Here's a guy who's a powerful man, has major control. This is what we need. Shout out to you, Terry Avent, second grade detective. You earned it. You should have gotten it a long time ago, but God bless you, brother. Be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of first graders on there too that deserved it. Sergeant special assignment, lieutenant special assignment. Shout out to you guys. So yeah, so well done, Jessica Tisch. You still suck in a lot of other things, but well done for that. So well, all right, let's get into it. Let's get into New York City's bill that's going to abolish the gang database. Let's get into the insanity of what a far left progressive New York City Council looks, sounds like, because and what ideas they're proposing. So, a lot of people, there are things that, like, when I hear, I agree with. There's another bill besides the bill to abolish the gang database that they have up. The first bill that they got up is to abolish the gang database. Now, if I don't know, could you pull that bill up for a second? So I don't know what their argument is, why they want to abolish this. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, if you're in that gang database, does it harm you later in life? Does it harm you while you're trying to get a job, while you're trying to get into a school, while you're, trying to improve your life and better yourself? Right? What are the consequences for a youth being in that gang database? Because then, to me, if I hear those consequences, maybe we could come to an understanding of, somebody shouldn't be in there or how long they should be in there. But when I listen to the city council hearing, and we're going to get into it, I don't want you to take my word or Eric's word for it. There really is no argument as to why the gang database should be abolished, other than that the people that are on it are 99% black and brown. And it's honestly race baiting, because the facts surrounding it has nothing to do with race. The reason why you're being placed in there has nothing to do with the color of your skin. So it, like, to me, I'm like sitting there and I'm at a loss for words, thinking, why would we abolish this gang database? But hey, maybe it's a poorly written bill. So I listened to the hearing, right? And then the same thing happens when we hear about this bill to no longer allow the NYPD to collect DNA swabs from minors without parental consent. And when I listen to that bill, and when I hear them explain it, that bill, I actually don't have so much of a problem with. It's a local law to amend the administrative code of the city of New York in relation to prohibiting the police department from collecting DNA from a minor without consent of a parent, legal guardian, or attorney. We'll get into it, but those are the two bills that are being proposed. Eric, what do you think when you hear any of these bills? The let's abolish the gang database, let's do this. Like, what comes to your head?
So immediately, I think the first thing that comes to my head is, fundamentally, we have to discuss what is a gang database. I think that's what we have to get back to. Is just say to ourselves, okay, what is this thing? So our active or retired members of law enforcement know it. Maybe some police enthusiasts, or maybe some citizens are saying to themselves, what is a gang database? So it's just a tool like anything else, right? Doing police work, in order to do effective police work, you need tools and resources. And that's exactly what a gang database is. It's a tool and it's a resource to monitor individuals that partake in gang activity, and it monitors gang activity on a whole. So the question is, just hearing that on its face, why would we want to remove a tool that allows the police department to monitor gang activity? And that's why I say to myself immediately, you have to ask yourself, do these people really care about public safety? Because it's not just public safety for the actual public. It's actual safety for the gang members in itself. So I like, reading these bills, I haven't figured out myself, what are they trying to fight here, other than, I think you nailed it, John, is just race baiting. Everyone wants to dive into this thing and say, well, this just paints black and brown. And I know we'll go into that as we go into the city council hearing. But just going into that alone, it's a tool and a resource, and what they're doing is they're asking to remove this tool and resource. And I'll go into it. We'll go into it more of what the parameters are of this tool and resource and how it's effective in law enforcement. But first, I want to say is the people that they're fighting for, the actual gang members, to not be on this database, it's for their safety as well. And how do I prove that? So John knows it. He worked in the police department. So did I, our active retired members. When you place someone under arrest, not only are you transporting them to court for persecution and prosecution, they're in your custody and you're responsible for their safety. So a gang database allows you to know your perpetrator, your arrestee, if they're involved in gang activity, to keep them safe. We have what's called a prison movement slip within the NYPD. I'm sure other law enforcement agencies have something similar. And that basically is a tag, and it moves around with your perpetrator. And on that list, it indicates if they have tattoos. And what it also indicates is their strip search. Maybe they had, maybe they're a threat. They had weapons on them. But also if they're a gang member. Why is that important? That's important to the safety of that gang member, so they're not housed with polarizing and opposing gangs, so that they're housed in the right locations to keep them safe. So that's why I just say right now, the people that they're fighting to keep safe, they're actually hurting.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, like I sit here and I understand we don't want over policing, and we want, we want a fair country that's and we want a police force, a constitutional police force. I understand that, and we want to improve on areas where we see are bad. I'm at a loss for words because I can't understand what harm's being done by you being placed in this database. And that's why I think we need to listen to what the reasons that the council people, that the public advocate, that they're saying that this gang database must be abolished. And when you listen to them, I think you're going to be left the same way we are, where we're like, wow, we are really being ran by morons. Like, they cannot even articulate what's going on. And honestly, I got to be honest with you, like, listening to their arguments on the gang database, I have zero issue with the gang database at all. I'm like, it doesn't even have any harm. But like, again, don't take my word for it. Let's get into that. We'll get into the testimony in the NYPD. Let's get into this. Is Althea Stevens. She's city councilwoman. She is the person who proposed the bill, which is sponsored by 27 city council members. But the bill to reinstate New York City workers without even compensating them only had 13 sponsors. So that is the state of New York City Council right now. Let's listen to Althea Stevens.
Since I've started in council, one of the things that I've said time and time again is that the NYPD needs to rebuild the trust in Black and Brown communities, and because of the continuously over-policing in those communities. And the first place I believe that they can start is by abolishing this database. What the database is having clear racial disparities because 96% of the database is made up of Black and Brown people. And we all know those are not the only people in gangs. And I would also like to note, being in a gang is not a crime. I wanted that to be clear. I would also like to highlight, since I've started in council.
Being in a gang is not a crime, Eric.
You know, neither is driving a car. Driving a car is not a crime either. Walking across the street is not a crime either. We're not saying that you can't be in a gang, but it's how it's utilized. So and that's why I say it's important that we go back to what's the purpose of a gang database. It's meant as a tool and a resource, just as a car is. You drive a car, it's a fantastic tool, and it's a fantastic resource. But a car could be used to mow people down. It could be used in a terrorist attack. It could be weaponized if you're out driving drunk. So it's how the tool and resource is utilized. So I haven't heard an argument at this point, and other than color, that stands up, that actually gives a good debate on this. Because a gang database, again, going back to what I said, not only is it a tool and resource to keep the public safe, but it's really a tool and a resource also to keep the arrestees safe. That is very important, that you're knowledgeable. You know, work in the police department, I knew all my gang members. I knew their families. I knew their associates. I knew what gang they're in. Working in PSA 7 in the South Bronx, that is the #2 precinct in the city for gangs and crews. #1 was a 7-5 precinct, East New York. PSA 7 was #2. So you have to know your gangs. Most of the crimes that are there are facilitated or associated with gang activity. And you have to keep people safe also. And that's also, it's a fantastic key to police work. If I see a kid that lives in Mott Haven and he's walking across the street into the Patterson houses, right away I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What am I thinking, John? If I see a kid in Mott Haven walk into Patterson after we just had some recent violence, what am I thinking? This kid has a gun on him and he's about to go shoot someone, because this is rival gang territory. So a gang database is a fantastic tool and a resource that gives information, intelligence. It's a public safety deterrent. It's so much valuable information to really help the public, to help the law enforcement succeed in getting illegal firearms, to have this perpetrator arrested. And in many cases, a gang database really helps these kids also, because many times I've pulled kids off the street, arrested them, and they're part of a gang, and they don't want to be part of this gang, but they have no choice. They have no choice because of where they live. They have to keep them safe. So gang database, to me, is an effective tool. I'm always willing to have a discussion. Opposition meets opportunity, and I have not met any argument other than their argument about color, and it fails on its face.
Yeah, absolutely. So she said, so the Althea Stevens, Councilwoman Althea Stevens, she says that basically the database is racist because of whom it encompasses, the ethnicity of it. New York City is a very ethnic place. The crimes of and gangs have changed over the years. There were Italian gangs, there were Jewish gangs, there were Irish gangs, there were Chinese gangs. But today, as it sits currently, the majority of gang members and street crews are compromised of Black and brown individuals. And we know that to be true based upon crime statistics, based on victims. So I'm going to pull up a clip right now. This is Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters, Michael Gerber, for the NYPD. Michael Gerber, you've probably seen him running around doing car pursuits with the Khaki Pants Kids and Kaz Daughtry. But this is him, and I think he lays out a great case of why. So he basically pushes back with just statistics. He doesn't push back with his opinion. It's not his opinion. It's not like me and Eric was sitting here, we're listening to this and we're saying, oh, these are, this is what it is. These are the facts. This is what Michael Gerber's response to Althea Stevens is. Why is the gang, she actually says the gang database is compromised of 96% Black and brown people or people of color. He actually corrects her. It's actually compromised of 99%. Black and brown, the gang database. So because it's compromised of their ethnicity and because being in a gang isn't a crime, they want the gang database abolished. There are no other factors that she could come up with as to what's bad about the gang database or how it's harming individuals. So this is Michael Gerber actually responding to the numbers she had given.
There are just over 500 gangs and crews represented in the database. It is true that 99% of the individuals in the database are people of color. It is also true that in New York City, from 2019 to 2024, 96% of the individuals arrested for shootings and 96% of shooting victims were people of color.
There it is. 96% of people arrested for shootings were people of color. 96% of people who were shot were people of color. Is it racist that the gang database is compromised of 99% Black and brown people?
This argument completely falls on its face, because they actually presented the argument and they actually gave the NYPD the ammunition and the information to show that it fails on the face. And I thought it was great at that point that he even corrects it to say, without saying, hey, I'm going to correct you. But he goes on to say that it's not 96%, it's 99%. So the overwhelming majority, almost the entire gang database, is black and brown. And it's unfortunate, but it's reflective of the crime trends that are going on in New York City. One thing I used to do with special operations and anti-crime was study. You have the gang database, and we also had the list incompetence, which is a report in the NYPD that would give you who are your perpetrators that were involved as multiple shooters. So they have been involved in incidents where they have shot at people or shot people in several instances, and also the victims of that. And obviously, I didn't have the percentage at that time, or I'm saying I don't have it at this time to reflect back then, but the overwhelming majority are victims of shootings, and those perpetrators were black and brown, and it would correlate to the gang database. Now, the conversation that they should be having is what's the criteria, what's the category, and what are the different functions to be placed on that list, and how do you come off that list? I think that's a conversation that we should have. I can understand, if someone has never committed a crime and they were on that gang database and they're now in their 30s and 40s and they were on that gang database at the age of 18, they should be removed. That's, and they're not part of that gang life or not associated. That I could understand. I don't know how that information is pretty much confidential to the NYPD. I'm sure someone may have some concerns if that information gets out when they're trying to seek employment. But while someone's actively participating in criminal activity in a gang, or if you're just in that gang and as an associate, I don't see a problem with that list being a tool and a resource to keep the public safe, to keep the cops safe, and to keep those gang members safe as well.
So obviously we're in the information age, right? And when it relates to gang shootings in particular, well, any shooting, one of the first questions that comes up, is it gang related? Is it gang related? Why is that important, right? So the reason that the NYPD utilizes this gang database is because if you have a person shot or if you have a person arrested, you run them in that database right away. Boom, they pop. They're a gang member. What does that tell the NYPD? The likelihood for retaliatory shootings is high. Who are their rivals? Also in the gang database. Where do they stay? Also in the gang database. Now the NYPD could deploy to both rival crews for surveillance and try to deter loss of life or more shootings from occurring. So this is what the gang database is utilized for. So in my opinion, it's a vital tool. It's a tool that saves lives. It's a tool that saves a lot of investigative time and gives the police the ability to spin on a dime and deploy resources to where resources need to be deployed to alleviate further violence, right? To not only save the lives of the gang members involved, but the public, innocent people, children on the street, elderly, disabled. So I think it's a vital tool. But then we have to look at the ramifications of what does it mean for that tool, right? Because we are in America, we have constitutional rights. What does it harm an individual to be on that gang database, right? And if city council has a valid argument about that, then I could see, hey, maybe we should improve, right? Don't we have an obligation to improve constantly, to progress constantly, to make things better? I think we should, or else what are we getting paid for? Or why do we even need these lawmakers? Right? What do we even pay them for? Get rid of them. We don't need them, right? So we have that obligation to do better, to police better. So I don't need to say what the criteria for the gang base is and what the NYPD does for it. Eric doesn't need to say it. Let's hear it from the NYPD. Let's hear it from the Deputy Commissioner of Legal Matters, Michael Gerber, again. This is how individuals are impacted. If you could play the clip.
While the information contained in the database is a critical intelligence tool, a variety of protections ensure that the information in the database is not misused. An individual's inclusion in the database is not a matter of public record. It does not appear in a person's criminal history. The fact that someone in the database is not shared with employers, schools, landlords, or civil immigration authorities. The fact that an individual is included in the database is not a ground for a stop or arrest and is not evidence in court. It is not a basis for charging decisions, bail determinations, or sentencing. In 2023, following a multi-year investigation, DOI issued a comprehensive report regarding the database. The report found no evidence that inclusion in the database caused harm to any individual or group of individuals, and did not identify a relationship between inclusion in the database and any individual adverse outcomes. At the same time, DOI made various suggestions for how the department could improve its procedures relating to the database. We have taken the majority of DOI's recommendations, and in several instances, we have made changes that go well beyond those recommendations. It is now much harder for someone to be added to the database. It used to be that someone could be added to the database based on a combination of factors such as presence at known gang location or association with gang members. That has been eliminated. If a detective proposes adding someone to the database on those grounds, the proposal will be rejected. Instead, an individual can only be added to the database if that person has admitted to gang membership, either in speaking with law enforcement or through the person's own social media posts, or if, over the course of an investigation, detectives believe that an individual is a member of a criminal group and two independent and reliable sources have identified that person as a member of the group. Moreover, these grounds for inclusion in the database must be documented. If there is insufficient documentation, the individual will not be included in the database. This strict requirement enables effective supervisory oversight, both through multiple layers of supervisory review and DOI's ability to audit entries in the database for compliance with our policies. We have also dramatically revised the rules for removing people from the database. There is an automatic review process. For adults, it is every 3 years, and for juveniles, it is every 2 years. A person can only remain in the database if that person has been arrested for a violent crime, weapons possession, or a crime in furtherance of the criminal group, is on parole or probation, or is in jail or prison.
To me, he lays it out pretty well, I have to say. I mean, we've seen numerous times where the NYPD has been confronted at city council hearings about different issues, and the NYPD failed. But I have to say, when it comes to this city council hearing, it's a win for the NYPD. The NYPD made their argument. They made their argument with facts. And there's no polarizing argument that stands up with city council. I think he laid out in particular exactly what we said, that if there's any concerns about anyone that was on a gang database, if that can affect your potential employment or your life, it's not public record. Unlike the 58 for police officers that could never get that removed, this is not open to the public. It's confidential. It's a resource for the NYPD. It's a resource. It's a tool for law enforcement. So what else is gang database important for? It's important for crime prevention, and it's important for investigations. And what I say about that, especially John, doing anti-crime, doing plainclothes work, or the guys out there right now doing public safety or khaki pants, when they're out there, it's very vital that you know the gang members, but you know their associations. Associations are so important for gangs because it can lead to extreme amount of violence. And it's important to understand what gang-related crimes are happening to address it more efficiently. So what do I say about this? I've had issues. I'm sure, John, you probably see this as well. Our active retired could probably speak on this, where we have a lot of gang activity going on, some violence. And then you find out through investigations that one gang member is dating a girl who her brother is part of a rival gang. And obviously they're trying to keep that information secret for that reason. And that happens quite often. So it's important that you understand the association. So if that information gets leaked out, and people find out that so-and-so from gang A is dating a girl who's the sister to someone in gang B, and they're having violence going on, that could be a major problem. And that's why knowing who's in that gang, who their associates are, knowing who their families are, who their girlfriends are, or boyfriends, whatever the case, because there's girls in gangs also, is very important to crime prevention, to anticipate what may happen. That's how also we deploy our officers when it comes to doing intrusive police work. You have your patrol units, but when you're doing proactive police work, intrusive police work, in many cases, I would deploy, if we're having an issue, I deploy my teams to monitor not only the gang, but the rival gang, because associations just like that. So this is a vital, major tool, not only in just having the information, but in crime prevention for public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, not she, Michael Gerber lays out that basically there is no impact on youth being in this gang database. It won't affect your employers can't see it. Nobody could see that you're included on this gang database. They actually made it very hard for you to actually get placed on a gang database, and you get removed after X amount of years. So and while you're on the gang database, there's really no impact on you. You can't be charged. It's not coming up in your court cases. It's not going anywhere. This is internal information that is being utilized only to deploy resources to stop gang violence. That is the only thing it's doing. The only thing that this database is being used for is intelligence gathering within the NYPD to be able to deploy resources to stop gang violence. That's the only thing. It's not going out. If you want to rent an apartment, the landlord can't see it. If you're applying for a school, they can't see it. If you're applying for a job, they can't see it. Nobody will see this. So that leads me to say, well, then what the hell? Again, I'm going to ask again, what the hell do you want it abolished for? Why are you trying to make the job of police officers harder? Why are you trying to take away valuable time and add valuable time to investigations that could be eliminated by the use of this database to be able to deploy resources to stop violence? This is actually an anti-public safety bill to abolish the gang database. Somebody on here said it. They said, I forget the name. They said, there's a gang database in Department of Corrections. Is there a bill to abolish that gang database? And the answer to that question is no. Right. And to me, when we look at these things, we really have to look at the individuals that are proposing them. So I apologize for this video that's going to come up. This is Council Member Althea Stevens. This is in December. This is last December of 24. This is, again, her explaining this. The video is going to be small. It comes from her Twitter. It's not ours. And this is how she made the video, so don't blame us. But listen to what Althea Stevens had to say a few months back as to why this needs to be eradicated.
I want to be safe. I am not the enemy of NYPD. I'm not the enemy of Republicans. We are all here. But let's be clear. If we want to talk about race, then why do we have a database that has 99% people of color on it and no one else? So the question isn't to ask us if we're racist. The question is to ask us the practices that NYPD are putting into place racist. And that's where we need to start. And that's why we are focusing on this. So it is unacceptable for us to be in here and act victims if they're racist. So I have to say that because it's unacceptable. I worked with kids for 20 years who have been terrorized. And what I say to NYPD all the time, we need to fix the right and fix the trauma that they've caused in our community before we can do anything else. They're not our enemies. So a young person does not want to play basketball with you if you have not addressed the traumas that when they come out the community center, you're going to kick their ass. And it happens all the time in my community. And I'm sick of it. And so we will not sit in these chambers today and victimize people who are consistently victimized.
That is just plain stupid. It doesn't even make sense. Again, The argument fails on its face. She supports the argument of the NYPD. She says 90% of the people on there are black and brown. Yes, because 96 to 99% of your shooting victims and your perpetrators are black and brown. So would it make sense to reflect the gang database to the crime trends that are happening in the streets of New York City to not only keep the police department safe, the public safe, but the people that you're fighting for to not be in this database, to keep themselves safe? And you know what's interesting about this? Commissioner Gerber actually laid something out. It's very important to even go back to. When you do intrusive police work, if you stop someone and detain them because you suspect them of criminal activity, you cannot stop them just based on the fact that they're in a gang alone. That is not a basis to actually have an street legal encounter, according to the Supreme Court case of People versus the Board. It's an additive tool and resource to understand, is something potentially gang related, gang motivated. It's a tool for crime prevention. It's a tool for investigation. It's resources to monitor the gang itself. And what's quite interesting about this is they have no knowledge of gang members. Obviously, they haven't spoken to any gang members. And John, I wonder if you could agree on this. In my experience, I spoke about this earlier in the episode, that there are some kids, we don't know that they're in a gang. And it's important to find it out to keep them safe. But I would say this: most gang members were self-admitted. They wanted the police to know what gang they were in. And when they were arrested, many times when we bring them into the cell area and they were rival gang members, they would shout it out. And I realized after time, they would shout out not what gang they're in because they wanted the other gang members to know. They wanted to shout it out so that the police would keep them safe. They wanted the police department to know. So in my opinion, most of these gang members actually wanted to be on this database. They wanted the police department to know they would be, some of the perpetrators and the probably our active retired members could actually agree with this. If you see any opposition to it, let me know. They would scream it out and shout it out to let the cops know, because they weren't as big and bad as they wanted people to believe, because they wanted to be housed properly. They wanted to maintain their own safety by identifying themselves. So most of the perpetrators I dealt with, the subjects and persons of interest, they were self-admitted gang members, and they wanted to be on that database.
Pure ignorance, just like the argument that's being presented here as to why the NYPD should not have this gang database. So let's go back to the city council hearing. Here's Althea Stevens again. This was the recent city council hearing on February 24th. This is Althea's second. She opened up originally and she explained why she wanted the bill. She did a piss poor job of that, obviously, because we don't know why she wants the bill abolished, other than that it's racist. So here she is again. This is her second round of questioning. Here's Althea Stevens. Let's hear it again. Maybe she couldn't explain it properly in her open statement. So let's go back to her again. This is her second round of questioning for the NYPD. Maybe now she could elaborate why this tool needs to be removed and what harm it causes to the gang members that are on it. So let's play the clip from Althea Stevens.
Which is why the data is more looking at African Americans specifically in the database. That's why, because that's where all the shootings are happening. Correct?
No, I said it's people of color. It's not just
All
African
right,
Americans.
but mostly, because we know that the numbers are even skewed there. But mostly, correct? And African Americans, people of color, but it's mostly black and brown. Correct?
In the database?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
And most of the people are doing those individuals you're saying are doing the shootings. Correct? Because you said 96%.
Two separate things. I gave the data about the racial demographics in the database.
Mm-hmm.
Separately, I gave data about the racial breakdown of people arrested for shootings and shooting victims in New York City over the last several years.
But you said it was like 96% because it's here.
Yes. No,
okay,
it's like 90%. I did say that. 100%.
So then my question is, how is this working? Because that to me shows that if you're saying you are profiling these people because it's racial profiling, and then still those same people are still doing the shootings, how is this working?
Councilmember, first of all, it is not racial profiling, and that is very unfair. The data I gave you is about individuals arrested for shootings and shooting victims. There's nothing racial profiling about that.
No. I'm asking.
It's not.
No. Listen to me. I'm not talking about the shootings. I'm asking you, the folks that you're observing, if the people that you're watching and have on the database are still, you're saying, are mostly people of color, and all this is happening. How is this working? Can you give me data on how many shootings this has stopped in those communities?
So we're going to give examples of situations in which the criminal group database.
No, I want numbers. I want the numbers around what percentages of shootings that this has stopped. Because my issue is around, if we are saying that this is about making things safer and you're using it for ComStat and all these things, how is it making it safer if these shootings are still happening? And like, how?
First of all, I would love to stop every shooting in New York City, but we know that's impossible.
Well, that's going to be our goal. Let's work together on doing that.
I would love to. I would love to. So you're talking about, give me an example. So let's take, again, we'll go back to Brooklyn, right?
I don't care about Brooklyn. I'm in the Bronx. Go to the Bronx.
I'm going to go.
No, go to the Bronx.
We'll go to the Bronx.
Because I'm not in Brooklyn.
Okay, so we'll go to the Bronx. I'll give you an example of the Bronx. Then I'll go
and you guys know I have time. So while you're
I'll go
going
to Southeast Queens, we'll go.
All right, get
community by
to the
community.
story, please, because I don't want you to eat my time, because I actually have some more questions.
So I'm going to give you an example of the criminal group database and basically how it works.
But could you give
So
an
I
example?
am giving you an example.
Yes, please.
19 incidents of violence in the 4-0 precinct connected to multiple crews. One of the crews, which I will not name, has documented 45 members in the criminal group database. 19 acts of violence, that's either shootings, people shot, shots fired, or gun arrest in a 2-month frame, right? We noticed younger individuals that were tied to older individuals that were.
I'm going to stop you because I didn't ask for that. I asked for the numbers and the data. I didn't ask for a story or anecdote, because if we are saying it, I'm asking you, how is this with the data that you have? Because this is about data and making sure we're using percentages and things like that. So how is this data stopping crime? What is the percentage of crimes that this database has stopped?
But Councilmember Stevens, you know that it's not possible.
Exactly.
No, hold on,
So
wait, hold on.
No,
You're
because I
asking
have
for
another
data
question.
You're asking for data about a negative. You're asking for data
All right.
of shootings that didn't
So
happen.
just say you don't have it.
No, because that's not the case.
Because you say
it's that you're asking for data that you know could not possibly be generated. You're talking about interventions that will prevent shootings, that do prevent shootings. But there's literally, it is not possible to track shootings that didn't happen.
Could I just
and you know
interject
that.
there, because it's not even, because there's no interventions that's being done.
So you heard it right there, right? She wants, first of all, she said that the gang database is racial profiling without giving one fact or one reason why she believes so. And then what she's asking for, she wants it quantified.
She's asking
how many crimes, what is the percentage of crimes that the gang database prevented? I mean, we're not going to know. The same way we don't know. Well, we kind of do know now, years later, what was the percentage of crimes, stop, question, and frisk prevented. Right now we're seeing that number quantified, but we won't know that until that's gone, right? We won't see the impact. All right, well, crime has risen from the point that we did this. We ended stop, question, and frisk, and crime shot up through the roof, and it's been going up for the last decade. Now, when we end the gang database, if we wait 10 years and we look back, I believe we're going to see some more retaliatory gang shootings than we've seen. But she wants that number quantified now. She can't justify why she wants the gang database abolished, but she wants the NYPD to quantify what's the percentage of crimes the gang database has stopped.
I had put out a post on social media how the members of city council lack emotional intelligence. And I find it, and they also lack stoicism. But let's talk about emotional intelligence. And I think that they lack emotional intelligence. And you can see when they have a conversation or a debate, how emotionally invested they get. It's ironic. And to me, it's a complete paradox, because they lack the ability to have professional conversations. They lack the ability to, when I say opposition meets opportunity, that's something that the city council needs to understand. Maybe I need to talk to them and say, hey, opposition meets opportunity, because they don't listen, and they don't want to listen to what the NYPD has to say. And that's why she's getting so angry, And that's why she, not only is she getting angry, but she's getting disrespectful because they're not meeting her agenda. They're not giving her the answers to the question she's already prefaced. This is almost like the game Jeopardy, where she gives the answers and they're supposed to give what the question was for it. And this is the same thing that happens in the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The cases are reverse engineered, and they ask questions based on a conclusion that they already drawn out. That's what happened here. They've already concluded that this racial profiling, that this is race-based. They made that determination, and now the NYPD is given opposition. They're given facts, and it doesn't meet their agenda. And that's why she's getting so angry and disrespectful, because the question that she's asking, you would need a crystal ball. It doesn't exist. Now you could have a standard and you could have a metric and you can measure, and that's what John just said. So if you compare the early 90s and you compare to what's happening now, where we have all this intrusive police work and it's tracked and monitored through Comstat, we could see the difference in crime rates and say, hey, we could use this as an analysis. But to say how many actual shootings were prevented on a particular day, a particular time, particular location is impossible. So, and she knows she doesn't want him to answer certain things, because if she answers certain questions, it debunks what she's saying. So she's drowning here. She knows it because he's already laid out that 96 to 99% of the shooting victims and also the perpetrators involved in shootings are black and brown. So it totally debunks her own argument. That's why she's getting angry. People get angry for two reasons in conversations like this: incompetence or laziness. And here it's complete incompetence.
And laziness too, because you couldn't even formulate an argument onto why you want to abolish something. You couldn't even formulate a coherent argument. And yet you have 27 council members, as well as the public advocate for New York City, who cannot formulate one reason, one solid reason on, hey, you know what this gang database does that's wrong? No, I don't, because you haven't told us. I don't. Nobody does. We're all sitting here like, what? And then I sit there and I go, well, who the hell voted for these people? How do they have any support? Like, where are people saying, if this is the amount of incompetence and laziness we're putting into public safety, could you imagine when it comes to the budget? Could you imagine when it comes to boring topics? I mean, these are topics that like people get energized about. These are topics that are sexy, like Eric likes to say. These are topics that are fun to talk about, to discuss. Could you imagine when it comes to the budget and we're talking boring topics or healthcare or anything else? Could you imagine the lack of effort and the lack of competence that these people are putting in to formulate the arguments? This is absolutely ridiculous. So I apologize to all of you on here. This segment of Althea Stevens is long. It's about 12 minutes. I think we got past about 3 minutes of it, but we have to go through the whole thing, because you have to understand there is no argument. There is no coherent argument. There is not even one iota or shred of evidence as to any type of harm that it does to youth or anyone later on in their life being placed on this gang database. But there is a ton of evidence that this gang database actually prevents shooting. However, they want it quantified into a percentage. They want to remove a tool, an investigative step, and make it harder for the NYPD to maneuver on a dime when there's gang violence and shift to which crews they should be monitoring and going after in order to avoid further shootings. So we're going to continuously play this Althea Stevens clip. We're going to go through, we're going to stop it a couple more times probably, but it's very important you listen to her argument, because like Eric said, she doesn't have one. So if you could play the Althea clip, if we could continue it.
Because it's one thing if you were saying that you were using this data, working with DYCD and all these people, you also said you're not sharing this information. There's no interventions being done to stop anything. So no, because that's true, because I asked you that offline. You're not doing interventions. And so if there's a difference, if it's like we're using this information to actually bring resources to those communities, meet with those individuals and find the things that those families need, that is very different. There's no interventions. And let's also be clear, when you're saying resources, you're saying cops. That is not going to get us out of the situation we're in. I don't want to stay there because I have some other questions. So have you ever heard of the ghost shadows? Have you ever heard of the Ghost Shadows? Because that's a well-known Chinese gang, American gang that's in New York City. Are they part of the gang database? So I know you have 500 and 60 something crews in there.
500.
Have you heard of the 5 families? Are they part of the database?
Council member, as you know, there is a separate database.
No.
No. Hold on. I'm answering your question. There is an organized crime database.
But this is not organized crime.
The ones 5 families.
No,
that is organized crime.
Ghost Shadows, that's not organized crime. That is a New York-based gang that is in Chinatown. Are they in the database?
Council member, there is
because they are
a group database. There is also an FBI database, which our TFOs are able to, working with the FBI, and draw on that.
I'm asking you about a New York-based Chinese gang that's in New York. Because in your database, they're only what I think I have the numbers. What is it? There's only like 70 of them. So is that the gang that's in there? Because I'm asking you a real question. Because again, I am saying, and why I get so upset and passionate, because you guys are willing to go so hard around something that I do not feel like is moving the needle. But it would move the needle in changing your relationship with my community. It's not. And I think that when you're in other communities, you're able to not have databases because crime is going on in other communities. And so how are you solving those crimes? Those crimes are happening, but you don't have to have a database to say like, oh, let me go in here and see if they're in here. No, you're solving those crimes. So even if you don't believe that you could do the work, I know you could do the work.
Council member.
And it would fix the relationship. I promise you.
2 points in response to your questions and your statements. First, do we share information about membership in the criminal group database with other city agencies? We don't, and you know why we don't. Because if we did, the city council would be outraged, and you'd be upset with us, and you would say that it is stigmatizing. So to suggest that we should be sharing.
No, I want to be clear.
Wait, hold on.
No, because I didn't suggest it. I said there's no intervention. So you're collecting the information because here's the thing. This is not stopping anything. Because if we were getting these young people off the street and putting resources there, that's how we stop.
I want to give an example, Chief. I just give an example of where we save lives by intervening.
These are
lives saved.
I'm going to give you an example. On January 13th, members of the NYPD were deployed in a specific area precinct in northern Manhattan, the 30 precinct, in regards to an uptick of crew violence. With that deployment, built on intelligence from the criminal group database, officers are deployed. Officers were able to effect the arrest of 8 individuals with 5 firearms. 2 of those individuals arrested with the 5 firearms. One of them was an identified crew member from a housing development in the 2-4 precincts. Another individual, identified crew member in a criminal group database, crew member in the 2A precinct in a housing development. That one of those guns was previously fired just a day prior in the 3-2 precinct. So what does that tell senior leaders of the NYPD? It tells us where to deploy. Hence,
so you're saying that
wait, let him finish.
No, I'm asking a question. I'm asking a point of clarity.
I'm not.
I'm asking because you said that let me finish because I'm asking the questions. Don't do that. I'm asking a question because I'm going to forget. So you're saying that they were deployed specifically in that area because of the gang database?
Absolutely. Part of it. Absolutely.
Part of it, or is that the reason why?
Part of the reason.
Exactly.
You
have other means to get to those places. You know where the violence is. You know where they are. And that's all I'm saying. That is one piece that is not necessary. So please do not sit here and make it seem like if this is not here, the sky is falling. Because guess what? Like you said, there is other parts of it and intelligence that you are using because you know where the crime is happening. You know, you do.
You're missing the point again. You're not listening to my answer. My answer is that 2 of the individuals were documented crew members in 2 different precincts that we would have not known to deploy there. And if you let me finish my statement, I'll continue giving you more examples. So what does that tell us? That tells us where to deploy and what crews are beefing.
I mean, I'm sorry you guys got to listen to it, but we have to listen to it because she's not even making sense.
Just realize.
Let them talk. And they're telling you exactly. LePetri is telling you exactly how they save lives. We deployed to an area where we believed there were going to be gang violence, and then we arrested individuals with firearms the firearms were used in previous shootings. Do you want us to quantify for that? That's life saved. How many? We don't know. Counts.
Just realize this is an elected official. Someone or some people voted for this idiot, this complete moron. And that's why she's getting so upset and she's getting so angry. And she's not letting them speak. She's not letting them speak because it doesn't meet the conclusion she's already made. The conclusion has already been determined that this is racist. It's profiling, she said, her community. And she doesn't want to hear the argument. Opposition does meet opportunity. She doesn't want to meet the opposition that meets the opportunity, that debunks her answer because she doesn't have any facts behind it. What's also interesting by this is the NYPD. I'm disappointed in LePetri. I think LePetri had a good reason. Gerber, I think he's holding his ground, but I think LePetri was kind of meek. He should have postured at this point and said, you know what? Do you want to have a real conversation? Do you want to have a real conversation? If you want to have a real conversation, let me speak, and I'll give you the information, the data, why gang databases are for crime prevention, investigation, why they're a resource, why they're a tool, because we deploy, just as I said earlier in this episode, we strategically deploy our intrusive teams based on gang information to stop crime. But they don't do that. He's quite meek and timid here, which is different from what happens at Comstat. And you know what's interesting also? Patrick Jordan, our brother from Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and former chief, he left a great comment here. I don't see the comment anymore. But the same people that want to fight to not have these databases, the irony and the paradox is they fight to have the NYPD on different databases, such as 50A and different databases, Giglio, stuff like that. So it's kind of ironic. When it comes to the police, databases are necessary. When it comes to gang databases, it's not necessary. Now, what I'm shocked by is she says, this is her community. Really? If you voted for her, ask yourself, is this your community? The gang database? The gang members that are on this database that have shot people, that are responsible for the crime that's going on in your community? That's your community? I want you to ask your community leaders, the people that are in that community, if they feel the same way. I highly doubt that they feel those gang members that are causing shootings, that young kids are dying out there, and innocent people are getting shot in the crosshairs, that those people are your community. Really? That's what comes from a complete moron. I'm sure I didn't know. For years, I always thought, wow, could I ever be a politician? And I don't want to be one. But apparently, you don't even have to pronounce words properly. She keeps asking a question. I thought it was asking. So I'm very disappointed. But this is what we have in politics.
Could you ever be a politician? You want Eric Adams and Bill de Blasio were the mayor of New York City. You could go in your backyard right now and fly like Superman. I have no doubt in my mind. If those two could be the mayor of the greatest city in the world, I have no doubt. If you went out in your backyard right now and flew like Superman, I would be like, yeah, it makes sense. There's no reason that you can't be a politician. We have the dumbest, most incompetent, laziest, most corrupt individuals put in this place. What about the Ghost Shadows? What about the Ghost Shadows? They're not shooting people. They're not getting arrested for the firearms. And we're not getting a huge influx of Asian shot. And by the way, you just said you don't care, right? You don't care about hearing about Brooklyn. You don't care. Why do you want to hear about Chinatown in Manhattan? Why do you want to hear about Flushing, Queens? Why do you want to hear about 8th Avenue in Brooklyn? Why do you want to hear about Asian communities? Now, you said you were from the Bronx. That's all you care about. Now you want to talk about the Ghost Shadows? Let's talk about the 5 families. Yeah, let's talk about them. Rudy Giuliani basically eradicated them in the 90s. What are you bringing them up for? Like, and if there were little crews like the Bath Avenue crew or any of those crews, they would be in that gang database, but they're not here. So what are you talking about, Althea? It doesn't make sense. You don't have an argument as to why. You don't even have one reason as to why the gang database needs to be abolished other than it's racial profiling, without being able to explain why it's racial profiling. So we're sorry to subject you to this, but we have 2 minutes and 10 seconds left of Althea, and I think you guys need to hear it. You need to hear her drowning and trying to make a case as to why this database should be abolished.
And that's what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing. I know you have other tools, and I know that you use other investigatory ways, obviously, if there's a shooting. But what I'm saying is there are other tools that you should be using, especially when this is it's clear evidence that this is racial profiling when 99%.
This is not
racial
this is
profiling.
Precision. This is precision.
We can't just change
And we're
language.
able to give you data because of the database. That's how you get your data. If we didn't have a database, you wouldn't be able to get data. But we do have a database and we can give you data.
With your permission, I'll just go and just because I think it's worth telling, just go into the culture of gang shootings, right? We know they're contagious in nature, and they rarely stop at one. They become contagious, and we need to stop that shooting cycle. How do we do it with rapid deployment? Now, what a gang shooting does, it creates an on-site environment. Now, what is that? When you have a gang shooting, you have both teams now that are carrying a multitude of guns. You have the oppositions carrying guns, and you have the aggressors carrying guns. All are expecting violence, and they'll shoot at each other the moment they see them. What does that mean? On site. That hence the term. Now, that creates such a dangerous atmosphere, and it's just so time sensitive. Why? Especially now, because of social media, right?
My time is up, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the chair, and I know that but we'll continue to talk, but I just want to be clear and just say the last thing is like, there are other tools that you guys are using that are actually solving the crimes, and you guys are being clear about that. And so the sky isn't falling. And I think Jamani, our public advocate, said it. Every time there's a situation that you guys don't like, you push back so hard and make it seem like the sky is falling. I actually have faith that the other tools that you're using is going to be better than this, because it's about restoring the trust that needs to happen in the community. Because I live in this community still currently. Like, I didn't move away. I live in the community where we have some of the highest shooting in the city. I live there. I see it. I've worked with kids who've had to bury their friends. We are not doing the real work. And to me, this is a place where we could actually recreate how we are community policing, and this isn't it.
This here is exactly, let me tell you something. It mirrors what we see going on, and John can agree to this also. What is going on at this hearing is exactly what we hear at the CCRB on a monthly basis, virtual hearings that John and I attend for CCRB. It's the same thing, complete bias and disdain and a prejudice for the police department, and a conclusion that's already been drawn up. And no matter what questions are posed, they don't care. They drive it into their conclusion. And if it doesn't meet their conclusion, they have a problem with it and they get emotionally invested. And that's what's happening here, just complete incompetence. So as that was playing, I was just looking up some of the demographics of the Bronx. She said she doesn't care about Brooklyn. I don't even know why we're talking about other boroughs. She said she only cares about the Bronx. So as of 2022, the actual makeup, the racial makeup in the Bronx is almost 90% black and brown, almost 60% Hispanic, and almost 30% black. And then some white, less than 10% combined of white, Asian, and other. Less than 10%. So the entire 90% or 91% of the entire borough of the Bronx is black and brown. How are we even arguing? She says she doesn't care about the boroughs, other boroughs, great. She actually just debunks her argument even more. She's only concerned with the Bronx. So looking at the Bronx, almost 91% of the entire Bronx is black and brown. So who would be on that gang database in the Bronx? It would be black and brown.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. But so you're saying that that's not racial profiling? Like it's absolutely ridiculous. So then up next after Althea, there was around, there was a lot of testimony yesterday. But we have to highlight the insanity that is city council. So socialist, Democratic Socialist of America candidate Tiffany Caban. Let's hear if she has a reason. Maybe she has a reason. She was an attorney. Maybe she has a coherent reason as to why this database should be abolished. Because till right now, we haven't heard anything at all. We haven't heard one thing. If you could bring up Tiffany Caban on the screen and play that clip.
This is about the gang database. Are you aware of any independent peer-reviewed evidence that shows that the database directly contributes to reductions in violent crime? And it's a yes or no question.
Your question is whether we've had sort of, for the NYPD database in particular, where we've done some sort of peer review or academic analysis.
Are you aware of any independent peer-reviewed evidence that shows that the database directly contributes to reductions in violent crime?
I don't think we've done any study of that sort. No.
Okay. So that's because there isn't any. There is not an independent peer-reviewed evidence that has the results that shows that it reduces.
No, we just haven't done the analysis either way.
Have you made any effort to calculate the costs of maintaining the database, including computing costs and staff time to process and review entries? What's it costing?
It's within our enterprise case management system.
So
There's not a separate, it's within the enterprise case management.
If your question is it a significant financial cost to the department, I think the answer to that is no.
great. Moving on. It's not that hard. Is it true that people in the database are more likely to be subjected to surveillance, including their social media? So like if you're on the database, you're going to be watched more closely, right? You're going to look at their social media.
No.
No.
No, I think that's not the case at all.
Okay. So you're saying that
That is amazing. So again, she wants them to quantify it, even though she was supposedly listening. So she knew they can't quantify it. So then she's like, all right, let me make the case that this is going to be cost effective to get rid of it. But he's like, it's literally within all of the systems built. It's just it's detectives typing into a system we already have that we utilize for basically every type of case, not just gang. There is no added cost to this, but she wanted that quantify it. So because we didn't quantify how many lives we've saved and how much it could save, which obviously is nothing because it's the enterprise case management system is what it is. Maybe if she wants them to calculate the 3 or 4 minutes each detective that gets gang information would take and inputting that data into the system, maybe she wants that quantified for a cost. But they're fishing for a reason as to why they want to abolish the gang database because they can't find one.
I have to admit, this I thought was the best exchange the NYPD had with the city council member, because you could almost see the words in LePetri's head. This was the time that LePetri fought back. He was like, no. And so with Gerb, like, no, because really what they wanted to say, and they couldn't say, is it's a stupid question. It's a stupid question. Is there an independent peer review to figure out? So that goes back to what I'm saying, is that they've already drawn a conclusion. She's like, see, you don't have one, right? Because she already drew a conclusion. Rather than saying opposition meets opportunity and let's see what the police department has to say, here's the data we have, and figure out where we're right or wrong. But they've already drawn a conclusion, and they're trying to fish. You're exactly right, John. Trying to fish to see what information the NYPD would give and see, oh, okay, this doesn't fit, so you're wrong, so you're lying. That's what CCRB does. The Civilian Complaint Review Board does the same thing. If you go down, any active members right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you were the subject of a CCRB, you go down to CCRB, the conclusion has already drawn up. And if you don't answer those questions, say, you're lying, because they already reverse engineered the decision. And that's what's going on here. So that was the best exchange. I thought Gerber, and at that point, LePetri actually pushed back a little bit and said, it's like, I love that. Why even bother answering this question? It's a stupid question. Like, no. And let her keep talking, because she's now debunking her own question. Like, what independent review? We just explained all the parameters, why this is a tool and a resource in this gang database. We gave you the information on the demographics of the crime victims, the shooters. We gave you the information on the demographics of what's going on in the city. Your own council member here said she doesn't care about the other boroughs. She only cares about the Bronx. The Bronx is almost 100% black and brown. So the whole thing makes sense. It fails on its face. Again, there's no argument. And that's an attorney. So it was a battle of attorney to attorney.
Absolutely. So this next video is public advocate Jumaane Williams. And this video I got sent a lot, so I posted it online, and I asked Jumaane Williams, I said, is this how an elected official should conduct themselves in a city council hearing? So let's hear what Jumaane Williams, maybe the public advocate who's second in line to the mayor, maybe the public advocate could give us a coherent reason or even something as to why he believes the gang database should be abolished. So let's hear from Jumaane Williams.
Occurring in gangs and street crews.
It fluctuates.
Okay, but you just said that because of your history, you believe 75% of it wasn't. And over that time period, the gang database has existed, so it hasn't really done what we wanted to do.
No, it's, I could not, I'm sorry, I cannot agree, I'm sorry, I cannot disagree with you more
Okay.
about the use of the criminal.
Wait, stop. I don't have that much time. I was going by what you said. I just repeated what you said and the percentage of the shootings and where they come from. That's all. But my other question,
Can I just say what some, you know,
but
we're talking a
we
lot
can answer
today
this in my
about
next question.
victims. Let's remember the victims.
Sure. Yes, I am remembering the victims
Okay.
more than you.
No, that's not.
I have been to more funerals than
Okay.
you, I guarantee.
Right.
And they look like me and their mothers look like mine.
Okay.
Do not believe that you care about this violence more than I do, or the people who are here, or the people who are there. Don't do that. Do not do that.
First of all, don't.
No, stop. Do not do that.
Don't talk to me
No,
like
call this to
Do not
order.
do that.
Don't talk to me like that.
No, you will not do that.
Don't stand up.
You don't know about this violence the way these people do. You just don't.
First of all,
You just don't. Don't do that.
do not talk to me.
But I will.
No, you
Don't talk to me like
And
that.
I'll talk to you like that.
No, this is the problem you have with the community.
No, I don't
I'm
have.
glad it's being shown right now.
We're gonna
This is exactly the community.
This is a hearing.
we're gonna just
Call it to
maintain.
order.
Aren't
I'm not going to be talking.
these? You spoke to me that way first.
No, I did not.
You absolutely
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Let's
My
just
next
level set.
question-
Let's level set and
Sure.
and make sure that we.
I love that LePetri was pushing back. Good. In a stoic way. You know what? That's how the police department should always remain. Push back, strong stance. Don't have to yell. But that was it. First of all, that was completely irresponsible. Again, it goes back to what I've been saying. People get angry and mostly invested when they lack intelligence, when they're incompetent and lazy. And that's what's going on here. They lack the incompetence, they lack the intelligence, and they lack the data. They lack the argument. They realize they're losing their own argument. And you know what's interesting? What do they all say? I don't have time. They don't have time because they want to get this over with. This is supposed to be a committee on public safety for your people that voted for you, and you don't have time. You don't have time because you don't have the answers. You don't have time because you don't have a good argument. You don't have time because you realize you lost your own argument. You posed an argument and you lost. You know, it's actually pretty laughable. I think this is more entertaining than most shows I watch on TV. This is outstanding. They debunked their own argument. They look like idiots.
It's unbelievable, dude. So I posted the video. I asked him. I said, "Is this how an elected official should conduct himself in a city council hearing?" He says, "Admittedly, that's debatable. What's not is the frustration of leaders and electeds who, more often than not, spend years dealing with the pain and aftermath of violence, being dismissed as not caring about victims when they are pleading for a more complete plan." So I'm like sitting there and I'm like, is this guy out of his gourd? Who does he think he's talking to? So I was like, I understand, but you are speaking to a 30+ year veteran in the NYPD who has dedicated his entire adult life to public safety. He has responded to, handled, and supervised countless horrific and unnecessary acts of violence in his career and has worked tirelessly to prevent these acts from occurring. I'm no fan of this administration, but Chief LePetri lives, eats, and sleeps public safety. None of us are perfect, and sometimes our emotion get the better of us, but I think Mike LePetri deserves a phone call from you, to which he basically responds and says that it goes both ways. I really acknowledge the effort, courage, and trauma of responding year after year. Doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like the city council or the public advocate actually acknowledge it, or the mayor, because he's never actually experienced that trauma either. Reminding me / us of the victims, or alluding to not the first time that we don't care about or understand the impact that communities that look like ours, right? Because this is Eric Adams' shtick too. They look like us. Oh, so you care more, right? The same people that you terminated and threw in the garbage and said that, oh, if you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to starve and your kids aren't going to have health care and you're going to die in the street. Those people that look like you, that you did that to, you care more about them than somebody else based upon the color of their skin. Because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that you care more because you're black. That's the same argument that Eric Adams gave when people are dying left and right in Rikers Island, which is majority black and brown people, and it's completely unsafe for the Department of Correction officers, which are overwhelmingly majority black and brown people. And he said, well, nobody should take this from me because they look like me. And it's like, yeah, well, you're an idiot. So it doesn't matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter what your skin color is. And this is what he says. He says, I think about the phone call. It would be a two-way conversation, though. I mean, I honestly don't think Chief LePetri said anything wrong. He's trying to put into perspective that people are dying, and we're putting more lives at risks by abolishing a gang database where you don't even have an argument as to why you want it abolished. And yet he's painting LePetri out to be, he doesn't care about black people. That's basically what he's getting at.
Well, I'll tell you what, LePetri doesn't have anything to apologize for. I think he did a good job. I thought he was pretty stoic. I thought he pushed back, and he should. You have a right to. He doesn't, just because he's the NYPD serving the public, so is Jumaane Williams, just serving the public also. That doesn't mean you have to be a welcome mat either and just completely stepped on, especially when you have a great argument. I think they lack zero intelligence. They want the police department to show respect to the public and to have thick skin. But yet, all I see from our city council members is they're all hot and fired up. I mean, these people, honestly, I wouldn't even trust them. They're right. I can understand why those people abolish guns, because these people that are in city council, they can't be trusted with a firearm or any kind of weapon. Look how they fire off the handle when you don't agree with them. When you don't agree with their agenda that lacks a complete baseline, it lacks a basis, they get fired up because they lack emotional intelligence. They lack masculinity, those traits that you need to be strong and stoic. What I find is also interesting, and I think it's completely inflammatory, and I think it's insulting to everyone in New York City. Your public advocate, who potentially could be your mayor, says he cares more about black people because he's black. So does that mean that he doesn't care about white people? Is that what you're saying? So only LePetri cares about white people because he's white. John and Eric, they care about white people because they're white. And Jumaane, he cares about black people because they're black. How about you care about everyone because they're a New Yorker? Either they live there or they're passing through, and you care about all lives. And again, there's no basis for this. Is he saying that the database is getting people killed? Is that what he's saying? Because this doesn't even make sense. So you're saying a tool and resource that could potentially help the people you're talking about, these funerals that you've gone to stop these funerals. Why would you want to remove a tool or resource? It's almost like we went to everyone's home and we said, you know what? Let's remove all the carbon monoxide detectors. And then all of a sudden we have people dying and we're like, oh my God, we have to protect our people. Hey, those carbon monoxide detectors would have protected them. So does the gang database. It's a tool and a resource, and they want to take it away. They have not given an argument. They have not provided any facts to, and all you have to do is test their logic. And what is their logic? Their logic is, because I'm black, I can say it, and because I'm black, I don't care. And yet the same people they claim they fight for, what is their answer? We don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Don't answer it, NYPD. We don't want you to answer it because we don't want you to give the real information. We're just pandering to the public right now. We're just pandering, as Sal Greco would say, to the low information voters. That's what we're pandering to. So if you live in any of these districts, they're not insulting just you. They're insulting your family. They're insulting black people. They're insulting white people. They've insulted everyone.
It's absolute disgrace what we witnessed here. So what we witnessed in New York City Council is a council who wants to abolish a gang database for absolutely no reason. They don't have one coherent reason as to why they want to get rid of it. NYPD did a great job, I think, of explaining exactly why it's necessary, how it's used. And I think that the steps that they took to protect even the gang members that are in the database are reasonable and fair and constitutional. And I can't knock them on one thing. I can't say one thing that like, oh, well, this isn't all. The gang database should remain. But the fact of the matter is 27 members of the New York City Council signed on to this. This is a body that's comprised of 51 individuals. More than likely, this bill's going to pass. Eric, do you think that this bill's going to pass?
One thing I learned about the city council is they don't propose bills that they don't think will pass. It's almost like they have the answers to the questions they're already asking. I do believe this bill will pass. I think this is a shame. Every piece of legislation that has been added on by city council or peeled away has been targeted at the police department and public safety. This is a committee on public safety. It's completely ironic. It has nothing to do with public safety. This is just another ploy to peel away at the NYPD and to put the NYPD out there in a position where they can say, look, the NYPD is ineffective. The only thing that's going to come out of this is losing more lives and losing more kids to gangs, because the NYPD does not have the tools, the resources, the information, the intelligence for crime prevention, for control gathering, for monitoring. This is a major epic fail, and yes, it's going to pass.
And so if it passes, Eric Adams has opposed this bill. He came out, again, he's came out on the right side for all the wrong reasons, because it's not because he actually cares about public safety. It's because he wants to keep his ass out of jail. But with that being said, kudos to you, Eric Adams, for actually being on the right side of history for once in your life. But now, if this bill passes, if these idiots decide to go ahead with it, again, I'm going to remind you, you're the mayor of New York City. You have veto power. So now, instead of like what you did for the How Many Stop Acts, what you're going to do as the mayor is you're going to veto that bill, and then you're going to call every single member of city council, and you're going to advocate to them all of the reasons why you believe that this bill should not pass and why the gang database is necessary. And if you need help, me and Eric will offer our services free of charge to you. Okay, Eric? Again, you're the mayor of New York City. You said that public safety is the key to prosperity. We agree with you. So take that public safety stance and then have a competent, coherent approach as to how you're going to provide public safety for New York City, because you failed to do that for the last 3 years.
That's interesting here. So if he does veto it, the question is, when it goes back to city council, 2/3 vote can override his veto. Do you think we can get a 2/3 vote? Because right now it's about split down the middle. It is the overwhelming majority, 27 out of 51, is a win for this bill. But do you think we could get 2/3? And unfortunately, I think the answer is yes. I mean, the common sense caucus doesn't even make up a large enough percentage to fight this. What are your thoughts on that if he does veto it?
I think that he could get it done if he's not a lazy, incompetent fool that he's been for the last 3 years. I think that he could get it done. I think he could get to common sense voices. Listen, Justin Brannon's a lefty liberal. I guarantee you I can get him to go the other way on this bill. I could name 15 to 20 other people on the city council like that. I guarantee you I could get them to go other way on this bill. But it's not going to happen with Eric just vetoing it and then going out and eating steak every night telling everybody he's a vegan. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen when I'm going to Washington to kiss Trump's ass to make sure that he really doesn't get charged. Not going to happen. He's got to work to do it. He's got to actually do his job, and which he hasn't done for the last 3 years. Start to do your job, Eric. And it could work. I think it could actually work. And shout out to the Common Sense Caucus. We didn't have time to play all of their videos, but I think every single one of those ladies that spoke, Joanne Ariola, Vicky Palladino, Ina Vernikoff, they did a great job. They were coherent. They said exactly what the necessary reasons for this database was, as well as Bob Holden. Anybody else I forgot, but they did a great job, and they should be applauded for that. So that I have to say. But what are we living through, right? What are we living through? Stephen S. was bringing up earlier something that Marlon had talked about, right? Jack, if you could bring it up to the screen. It is a Kakistocracy. I can't even say it, but this is what we're living through in New York City and New York State, honestly, even in America. So let's just a reminder, this is New York City. This is New York City politics explained.
There's a word that we should all, a term we should all remember, because it's going to keep coming up a lot, and it's called Kakistocracy. Okay? Kakistocracy is government controlled by the least suitable or competent citizens of a state. And you're going to see that more and more in New York. You've already seen it. You've already seen the results of that in California with the wildfires. Okay. And you're going to start seeing it more and more in New York. More competent people are going to start leaving, and it's going to create larger holes in government services, and basically the way the state and the cities run. And you're going to start seeing more public failures like these as time goes on. And it's a byproduct of the best people moving to the places that treat them best. Okay, there's a phrase in economics. It's by an economist named Winston. He said that capital moves to where it's treated best, and capital also includes human capital. Okay, people go where they're treated best. So, you know, we shouldn't be surprised that this is happening, and we should keep an eye out, because it's going to get worse until the state and the city recognizes what's happening and recognize that we've gone over the deep end, and we need to self-correct before we create larger problems.
He's absolutely right. Marlon was spot on, by the way. And so is Stephen S. I know Stephen S. mentions, how do you say it? Kakistocracy quite often, and which is actually from a Greek word, which means the worst, right? You're getting the worst administration, the worst politicians, the worst legislation that's running the best city in the entire world. How insane is that? So shout out to you, Marlon. Shout out to Stephen S. I know you guys bring that often, and it's happening. And that is right about capital, right? People want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated fairly. You want quality of life. And no longer is New York City or New York State, even at the state level, a place of quality of life. So shout out to you, Marlon, and shout out to you, Stephen S. Spot on. We're seeing this right now. This is the worst government we have. Tiffany Cabana has no argument. Shumani Williams is speaking just from a place of emotion. And Athena is just completely incompetent. She's already drawn a conclusion, and she has no evidence to back it up. So all you have to do is test their logic. And what is their logic? Their logic is, if you're black, you can say whatever you want about black and brown. If you're white, you can't speak on it. That's their logic. That's it. It's completely emotionally driven. It's emotion-based. They lack the emotional intelligence. They lack competence. They're incompetent. They're lazy, and they're ineffective.
Yeah, and I get a lot of people on here, and a lot of people are pretty happy that LePetri got his ass chewed, because that's what he does to cops at CompStat, and he does to ranking members at CompStat. I think he has a little bit more of a coherent approach to when he's going after people at CompStat, and there's a reasoning behind it. What was happening at City Council, completely unprofessional, but yes, these executives got a little taste of their own medicine, and that could be good too. Maybe they understand what they're doing to people and how it feels to listen to nonsense. I think they're more coherent and much more competent than any members of City Council. But yeah, it gave me a little chuckle too. But it was wrong what happened. That hearing was a debacle. It was a complete joke. And yeah, the gang database should remain. I don't think it will, however. I think that it will get voted in. I think that possibly reminding Eric Adams that he's a mayor, he could possibly veto it. I don't think he will put the work in to have that veto stick, though. He's about as useless as they come. So that's just my thoughts on that. The other bill, I don't think we're going to get into it, but I honestly, I don't really have much of an issue with the bill. It's, that's a conversation, I think, for another day. We're about an hour and 40 minutes in. Eric, you got anything before we start to wrap up?
Well, when it comes to this bill, again, there's no argument. There's no evidence-based. Testing their logic, there is no logic. It's emotionally driven. It's based on prejudice. It's based on bias. It's based on disdain. The goal, and I think Patrick Jordan said it here earlier also, the goal is to just strip the NYPD of more tools and resources to be effective, to eventually point a finger at the NYPD and go, look, you're ineffective. Look, you're not doing anything. That's what they love to do. They love to point fingers. And I have to admit, I have to chuckle. You know, I think that LePetri and I think these other guys don't deserve to be treated that way. But hopefully, if you're watching this, LePetri, and I'm sure you are, I think you did a good job pushing back. But next time you're at ComSet, think about how you were treated at this meeting. And maybe you want to treat the commanders much better, and the detectives, and the detective squad COs, and the FIOs who work so hard to support the NYPD and support public safety. Think about when you speak to them. Don't speak to them by drawing your own conclusions. Actually have a real conversation. So hopefully some good comes out of it. There's good that always comes out of bad. With that being said, I just want to say again, going back to what's going on with my son. Thank you so much, everyone. You've been reaching out. If you reached into your pocket, God bless you. I appreciate it. Life is full of conflicts. We're always going through conflicts in life. This is a conflict I'm having in life right now, and we all have our own conflicts going on. That's life. And if you don't have conflict, you're not living. So if you reach into your pocket, God bless you. I appreciate it. And if you can't right now because you have conflict of your own, please just say a prayer. I was never a religious person, but I am very spiritual, and this is really something spiritual. So please pay attention to your own health. Pay attention to your family. Doesn't cost you anything but your time and some money. And money comes and goes. Check yourselves out. Make sure you're okay. And thank you, everyone, so much for helping. Paul Manicone, Chrissy Manicone, to his wife. God bless you guys for helping me out and doing this donations. I really appreciate it. Thank you. God bless everybody. Have an awesome day. And check out, of course, 1205, Sal Greco, of course. He'll be coming up. And then, of course, our executive perspective, which I'm super proud of. I think these guys are doing awesome. Ron Layson, former and now retired inspector from the NYPD. And, of course, Rob Lukash, former deputy chief. These two men are outstanding. Super awesome. Check them out. Their show is going great. On Wednesday, it will be there tonight, 17:05 or 5:05 p.m. These guys are awesome. Check it out. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for everything. Listen, all the links, the only link you're going to see in wherever you're watching or listening to this is going to be the GoFundMe page for Eric that Paul and his wife were kind enough to set up. So if you like we said, if you can't donate, if you could just share it and drop a prayer, we'd appreciate that. And that's wherever you're watching or listening to it. You could see the link to that. We appreciate all your love and support that's happened on here. Like Eric said, check out the Sal Greco show 12:05. Check out the executive perspective at 15:05. And yeah, we'll be back at you on Friday. We'll probably do another roundtable. I think it's going to be another Constat week 9, and we'll wrap up what happened during the week. And yeah, I think that's it, people. I think we're going to leave you with a little nice parting message from the illustrious mayor in New York City, Eric Adams. This is from last night, and it's absolutely hysterical. And it's, I think we could all use a little good laugh through these trying times. Again, when life's going at you good and you're flying high and you feel good, it's always just waiting. There's always something waiting around the corner for you. We're in a constant state of battle throughout this life, but what we're working towards is to find meaning in that battle. So appreciate all you, love all you guys. Thank you so much for everything, Eric. That's it. We're gonna get through this, brother, and that's it, guys. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, "God, forgive them, for they know not what they do." All these Negroes were asking me to step down. God, forgive them. Are you stupid?
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901 Blue. That's 888-901 Blue.